Flourishing Unfiltered, the podcast for high achievers who seek a professional life that feels as good as it looks.
We talk about the unseen journey of struggles on the path to success that people rarely talk about.
I'm Karen Smith, positive psychology practitioner and leadership coach and consultant.
And I'm Dr. Micah Nyhouse, positive psychology and self-leadership speaker and consultant.
Before we begin today, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we're recording. We pay our deepest respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
As we share our stories today, we honour the rich tradition of storytelling that has been passed down through generations.
If you enjoy our podcast, please leave us a review. And with that, let's get started.
Welcome back to the show. I am so excited to introduce a very special guest today, Erik Wirsing. Erik is the VP of Global Innovation at DB Schenker. He's been with DB Schenker for more than 25 years, believe it or not, in various positions, and in addition to various IT areas, has also headed the innovation area for Schenker Germany since 2011. Now, since 2016, he has been responsible for the innovation division for DB Schenker globally and reports in this role as Vice President Global Innovation as part of Global Ventures and Innovation part of the CEO department of Schenker AG. The focus of his area is, amongst many other things, on researching and observing social and technical trends. So, for example, digitalization, 3D printing, autonomous driving, alternative drives, smart devices, cargo drones, and many more, their impact on the logistics industry and the derivation of future business models for the logistics of tomorrow. Now, he's also responsible for DB Schenker's own lab, all startup activities, and innovative pilot projects, as if that's not already enough. He describes his motto as "He who stands, walks," and one of his favorite hashtags to use is "Hungry for Innovation." Now, full disclosure, I know Erik because he's also an absolutely fantastic business mentor and has been supporting me for a while. So that's why I'm super stoked to be welcoming you onto the show today, Erik. Welcome.
Absolutely fantastic introduction. Many thanks for being here. Great to see you again. Hi, Karen. Hi, Micah. Looking forward.
Erik, it is so nice to have you here and to get you to talk about all your successes, but more importantly about how you got here and perhaps the struggles along the path to your success, because that's obviously what this show is all about. But maybe with your career, and which is a little bit distinct from our other guests' careers, I guess, because you're much more strongly settled in corporate leadership, I guess. I would love to know what got you inspired to get started on this journey of logistics, I guess.
I think let's start maybe with my grandfather, because it's more a family thing for me, because my grandfather founded in 1935. He really founded a logistics company, a small trucking company, together with his son. So it was to my grandfather and my uncle, who were really responsible then for a small trucking company in eastern part of Germany. So that was a very interesting part to have your own business in the eastern part of Germany. That was also a tricky part. But in 1990, my father took this business over, then with his brother, then as his first employer. And when I was born, I'm born 79, so you can imagine that was my whole childhood and my whole teeny time was then together with trucking, with dispatching, with working on trucks, helping my parents, then because my mother later on also stepped into this company. And therefore, trucking logistics was always a part of my whole lifetime. And somehow I grew up with all these logistics topics. Of course, when I've done then my school and then thinking about what might be my next career step or what might be then the next step, of course, my parents offered me a good position in their company. I said, never ever I will work with my parents. So therefore, I really have to step out, finding something somewhere else. And then I had several options and different ideas. But of course, coming from my hard topic with logistics and seeing what kind of challenges and difficulties this industry has, and even how international, diverse, and maybe what kind of great potential in this logistics is, or in this industry, I always had, let's say, a totally favor for these topics, and therefore it was, let's say, somehow natural that I really went into a bigger company, and then this time directly into Schenker. I have done an apprenticeship there for 2.5 years, working as a logistic freight forwarder, really stepped into several positions. Yeah, and that was somehow my small way. And let's say I was born, I went to Schenker, I'm still there. And now, as you said, 25 years already with the same company. But I'm always telling my people and even my family, I'm getting rid of Schenker. I maybe step to another company when I get bored. But I never get bored so far, because there's so many great, amazing things, what you can achieve, what you can do, what you can develop, what you can train, what you can tell people. So therefore, that's such an amazing industry, and I really fall in love with this topic directly from the childhood. Even in this time, it was not always easy, but because you can imagine when your parents have their own business, there are many times and many days when you said, okay, let's stop this and do something completely different.
Yeah.
But that was also something where I really learned. Having a kind of a big corporate behind you is also backing you and helping you to cover even when the times are a little bit more difficult. And therefore, it was not my intention to be, let's say, my own business person, to drive my own business and to be really there as an entrepreneur. But having this kind of a backing in a corporate with all these possibilities, and that was then always my topic. And yeah, still I'm there. And later on, I studied twice different directions, always with a business administration, with the direction of logistics. I've done my logistic assistant and some innovation driver topics. So lots of further developments. But all in all, the major headline and the major red line is always bringing logistic into the next level and to the next period, into the next time. And that's what's driving me to be prepared for tomorrow.
That is so crazy. And would you say it's just a weird coincidence that you just loved the whole logistics area?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such an amazing industry, because I think when you are not into this industry, you always believe, okay, logistics, these are some trucks bringing things from A to B, but it's so much more. And even when you remember our COVID times, then you really felt that when the logistics service is not up to date and it's not there, then you got in trouble. And now we really recognize, okay, logistics is really system relevant, because we are keeping the economics alive. And therefore, logistics is really a huge part. And we are in more, let's say, in every country. We are doing trucking. We are doing with airplanes. We are using boats. We are building up contract logistics, so really buildings for our customers. And it's with rail. So you have, let's say, all internationalities. You have all diversity topics that you can ever imagine. And then you have all legal circumstances like sustainability, new laws, new regulations, new taxes, new elections in some countries. So when Mr. Trump is now coming back, of course, it will have an impact for our logistics services. So everything what happens on this earth has an impact for logistics. And that's then the great part, because we have to deal with all these technology topics, with all these legal aspects, with all this even natural catastrophes. That is something what is always impacting our day-to-day business. And therefore, it's such an amazing industry where no day is like the others. And therefore, it's always to be prepared, prepare your customers, your employees. What might be then the next big thing? What might be then the next disruption? Because there are disruptions everywhere and every time. And therefore, that's somehow else even my understanding, being responsible here for innovation. Because every time when we are coming with an innovation, everything what we are bringing is something new. It wasn't there before. And then you have to find a way to motivate people to explain the story, to explain the topics. Why is it important? Why now? Why with you? Why we have to change here? And therefore, logistics and innovation is so absolutely, extremely sexy, I would say, and so many things that you can develop and that you can do. And it always is not belonging to lots of budget and money. Sometimes you always have to motivate the right people, and then great things can happen.
Sounds like it's very much about leadership.
Absolutely. And I think leadership is absolutely important. And even as I said, I'm responsible for innovation, but innovation is then always, we are giving offers to the organization. We are not saying you have to, and that's now the next step. So no, we're trying to explain why it's important for you, what is what are the circumstances, to really explain what is, let's say, the background, why we have to change, and what is in it for you. And that is then really, I would say, more an emotional leadership style that I really love, to really explain, to motivate people, and to take them really with you on the journey to be prepared together for tomorrow. And that is really something what I really love. And then I'm always telling my people the EQ, so the emotional intelligence, is even more important than the IQ, because you can be the most intelligent person on this earth, but if you're not able to deal with people, then you might struggle even soon.
So true.
Plenty for us to unpack here, Erik, and we'll probably tap into some of your leadership insights as we venture through today's conversation. A couple of quick fire questions for you, though. So firstly, just a bit of context here for our listeners. So just so our listeners are aware, in one sentence, how would you describe what DB Schenker is? Just one sentence. Tricky.
It's a global logistics company bringing things from A to B and storing them if needed.
Amazing. And how big is it? Just so our listeners have got an understanding of the scale.
Yeah, Schenker has now around 74,000 people, and we are working in 130 countries. And they're doing services via land, air, ocean, and contract logistics. So these are the 4 business units. And our mother organization is Deutsche Bahn, so the German rail organization. That's, let's say, the owner of our company so far.
Amazing. Some good context here for our listeners, because I think it's important for our listeners to understand just how big of a company it is and how widespread it is. Because when we're talking about leadership, you're not talking about leadership of a particular group of people with a particular nationality. You're talking very global here, which I think is going to be really important for our listeners to capture an understanding of. My final quickfire question for you here is, you're a VP of Global Innovation. What does that mean? In elevator pitch me your role. All right, tricky, I know. But elevator pitch. What does a VP of Global Innovation do?
Very good question, because innovation is always a big word, and what is really in it or what's behind that. I'm always telling people I'm dealing with all the topics that are not relevant for our current business model, but might be a disruption, might be an option, might be an opportunity by tomorrow. And therefore we are trying to find out what is really the next big thing. How can we integrate it? How can we prepare our organization? How can we prepare our customers? And what are the demands of our customers for their logistics service provider of tomorrow? So it's always about 2 steps, 3 steps ahead, thinking ahead, and really bringing people then really here into the right understanding. If there is something new that you can already buy in the shop, that's nothing for innovation. We always have to find, let's say, everything that's not fitting to our current business model that's popping up on our desk. So and that's then R&D, that's startups, that's funding topics, that's lots of crazy discussions with crazy, amazing, cool people. But you always have to find out what is in it for us. Of course, when you're such a huge corporate like us, then many people knocking on your door and said, "Here, I'm a startup company, Schenker. Do you want to buy me?" I said, probably not. What is your business model? So then you always have to find out, okay, is there something in it? And of course, one major topic for innovation is always to understand the pain of your own organization, of your own people. So therefore, we always try to find out how can we be better with the topics, with the operations, with the things that we are doing, and where are we struggling right now? Where do we have a manual task? Where do we spend lots of money with not a big outcome? And that's then something where we see, okay, there's a topic, there's an issue, there's a pain, there's a problem. Let's try to find a better solution for that. And that's then always when we are coming in as a kind of an in-house consultancy. And then we have scientific people, we have startups, we know lots of suppliers around the globe. And then we're always trying to find out what might be the best solution. Try stepping in, testing it as fast as possible. If it's working, fantastic, then please implement and scale it. If it's not working, stop it. That's something where German people are not good in stopping things, but that's really something what we always have to do. Explaining people, small pilot with a clear time frame, and after the time, then we really have to decide, is it something for us or not? And that's something where we always coming in. Of course, we are kind of a cost center within our organization, so we are only costing money in the first step. But of course, in the long term, it should bring lots of benefit and EBIT and value them back to the organization.
I was just going to follow up from this because you're in one of those roles, Erik, where there's potential for high risk, high reward here. If you get it right, it can have a massive flow-on effect in regards to efficiency and costs within the company, saving people time. As you mentioned, your pain points. You've been in your role, you've been at the company for a very long time now, and you've had quite an established career within the company. Has there been any times where you've just haven't quite got it right and it's really hit hard either for you personally or for the company, that's kind of impacted and really affected how you sort of lead moving forward now?
Of course. And of course, it would be crazy if an innovation guy would do everything correct, and that if I had, let's say, the right crystal ball with everything what I'm doing is then there for implementing and then scaling for our organization, that would be amazing. But then maybe I would be working for my own business and then doing something completely differently. But of course, if you're having an innovation department, and I can highly recommend for all corporates, for all companies out there, try to develop, or let's say try to implement a person, a group, and let's say, in responsibility within your organization for innovation to really take care 2 steps ahead from where you are today to really prepare your organization. But something maybe 2-3 examples what I've done and what was not working quite well. So there was one topic when lots of technology, and it was already some years ago, we developed a special box with lots of technology. So we have temperature sensoric things. We had the light sensoric. There was a signal getting on a platform when somebody was opening the box without you had a blinking point on the map to follow the box. Where is the box? Mm-hmm. Then it's a temperature, humidity, G-forces, vibrations, light sensorics. All sensorics that you can imagine in this box. Even with alerting and said, okay, Karen is allowed to open the box, Mike is not allowed to open the box. So when Karen is going to the box, fantastic. We won the German packaging award with this box. Then later on we went really to Sydney. And Sydney was then at this time the place where we went to and we really won an international packaging award with this box. So fantastic. We won all awards that you can imagine for a packaging as a logistic company. The crazy thing was no customer wants to have this box, because we really forgot to ask the customer, what is your demand? And we really found out, okay, there was too much technology in this box. No one needs such a box with so many functionalities and with a blinking point on the map and the sensoric things and temperature, humidity, whatever. Even the setup for such a packaging to use this box was so complicated that customers said, no, there might be easier ones. And that was really making to say, yeah, we really missed to ask the customer. What is their demand? What are they willing to pay for such a service? And that was that was an aha effect for us as well. To really say, okay, we really fall in love with technology and with all the things are out there. And we thought, okay, we are the biggest logistics company on this earth. And if we are developing a new box, of course, our customer will love that, except absolutely not. Mm-hmm. And they do not really understand this kind of service. And that was a big, let's say, game changer for us here as well, to really finding peers and groups and customers where we can always challenge new things and getting their feedback, their demands, their ideas, because it's not on us to decide what might be then the next big thing for the industry. In the end, our customers has to use this. And when you're going to books and when you're going to theory, what is really innovation? In some of these books always stands in innovation is when it's implemented on the market. And I would say, no, it's not. Because when it's just implemented on the market and then no one wants to have it and wants to buy it, then it's not an innovation. So an innovation is then really when somebody wants to have even more of that and wants to buy it and wants to have really the next one, whatever, then it's really an innovation. Mm-hmm. And that is something what we really learned in this time. And then we also changed here really our processes. And of course, sometimes you have to risk things, and then that was something where we risk also when we implemented the first 3D printing solutions for our customer. That was also something completely crazy, something where normally it's the worst case for a logistics company, because normally we are earning our money by transporting things and storing things. Mm-hmm. And 3D printing, you're printing on demand locally. So less trucking, less storing, you're just printing on demand. And of course you can say, well, I don't care. Who cares about this technology? But then we also decide, okay, let's maybe find out if this might be a new service for us in the future. And then we really, let's say, fake it until you make it. So we even convinced our board let's say, a little bit tricky how to implement and how to use it and why it's important. And you always sometimes you have to find the right circumstance. That was in this time on a fair where we really brought a 3D printer on the fair and really shown our board. That's a 3D printer. We're having now a new service for our customers. We had nothing. We had this 3D printer from the electronics store, and that was there. And we printed bottle openers, and that's it. But we
really
know
hope
exactly.
your board isn't listening right now, by the way.
It's too long ago. And I think they know the story, all right? Because in the end, it went quite well. But in this time, it was also to take some risk. And the risk was we went on this fair, on our biggest fair. That's our global logistics fair in Munich. That's every second year. We went with a 3D printer in the middle of our booth. Standing there is that we have a new 3D printing service. That was like a fireplace. So people were standing in front and were watching, and we were printing bottle openers. So really bottle openers. And the good thing is that we know exactly when one of our board members was in an interview in the next hour, whatever. And always before they went to the interview, I took them and brought them to our 3D printer and explained them, we have now here a new service. And we are printing 3D parts for our customers on demand, wherever they want to have this. And that was quite cool because then half an hour later, they went to their interview. Said, yeah, Schenker has now a new 3D printing service. Have you seen our 3D printer? I said, yeah, fantastic. So we catch the board with a small, funny, crazy story. And then after the feedback of this fair, we had enough feedback from customers, from our board. We had a standing. And then we really implemented the service. But it was a high risk to really go for such a technology here and there.
And can I just pause there for a minute? Because somehow you managed to turn this into a success story again. And apart from that, so good on you, well done. But apart from that, what I'm really interested in is, so you just shared the story of the box before, the fabulous box that was absolutely amazing, but that wasn't actually needed or wanted by the customers. What I'm interested in is how this impacted you personally. Did this ever, have any detrimental impacts to your confidence? Did you ever in those moments doubt yourself, led to you doubting whether you had what it takes to be in that role? What has been your personal journey? Because your journey is one of such massive successes. I want to know, did you ever struggle? Do you ever feel like you don't have what it takes? Do you ever wonder whether you should maybe not get promoted onto the next level? Tell us about that.
Good one. Then maybe let's use also another story here and maybe going directly back to my beginnings. Because when I started in the age of, when was it? When I was 23. I was we were in a corporate department and my former boss was heading this department. I came as a very young person with 23 into this department, and then suddenly he passed away. And he was 53, I was 23, and suddenly I was responsible for a huge rollout of a huge project that was the first telecommunication, so board communication, so these kind of mobile scanners that you might know from FedEx or UPS when they're coming to your door, and you have to sign something on these devices. And that was something what we implemented in 2003. And suddenly I was responsible for 5 million projects, for 760 dispatchers, for roughly 2,000 truckers and truck drivers. And that was, let's say, a huge challenge. And I wasn't aware how to do that, how to deal with that. But there was no question. And I was then directly reporting to a board member. And that was also crazy because my boss passed away. And then I had to drive to Frankfurt to my new boss, to the board member, and he told me, dear Mr. Wirsing, we tried to find somebody in our organization to replace your boss, but suddenly we didn't found somebody. Please try it by yourself. But okay, that was a big one. And then please think in the next 2 weeks if you're moving then to Frankfurt, and that was 250 kilometers away from my hometown. And was I think half a year before I was the first time going together with my former girlfriend in this time. So the first own flat, new apartment. And then he told me, we didn't find somebody, and please move over then to Frankfurt. He said, and that was a big one. So in this time I really had a 6-day week and traveling a lot, I think 95,000 kilometers in 1 year. And that was something, but I never doubted about that. And I was never asking myself, is it right or wrong? Because there was this work. I had this responsibility. I have done decisions. I decided for things I would never decide again, but I didn't know it better in this time. And of course, I found good people who are mentored me, supported me from, let's say, from an kind of a mentor style. But in the end, it was then really also the trust of the board that Erik will do it right. And that was the year of my life, with lots of over hours and lots of working time, and lots of traveling, lots of sleeping in hotels somewhere to train the people, and lots of technical problems. I think from this 2,000 scanners that I ordered, I think only 5 have been there in time. The rest came months later. And I think I had 63% of damages in the first year. I have 4,600 horrible emails from branch managers who always, let's say, hated the solution and hated the whole circumstances. So that was a tricky time. But nevertheless, it went out somehow okay and well. These solutions is still in place. And of course, the company, let's say, trusted in me as a very, very young person with 23, being then responsible for such a huge million project for whole Germany in this time. That was a big one, but it was also my huge learning. And I think before this project, I still had full hair, and after this, it a little bit looks different.
We're going to get some photo evidence of that.
Erik, that is an incredible opportunity, and no doubt that there was a huge amount of work that you're doing behind the scenes here that we don't fully understand, nor will we fully grasp a full understanding of. But I am really curious, and I think our listeners will be really curious. What are the maybe like personal characteristics or traits that you feel as though you have that help you navigate big challenges like that? You know, the ones that you have faced and the ones that are come. What are the characteristics or traits you think that resonate most closely with you?
I think it's that you're not addicted to 9 to 5. So that you're really saying, okay, there is a job, I'm taking the responsibility, and whatever is needed to make that to a success, I will try to make that happen. Trying to find the right people, motivate the right people, telling people always clearly when you have no clue. I have no understanding. I have never done this before. I'm a young person with no experience on this, so why should I know this? So I can't know this. I need your support, asking for support. I think that is something extremely, extremely important. And to not try to hide things or to say, no, I'm trying this and I bet on this and maybe let's do it left and right and could be maybe right. And to, let's say, going in a business like a poker game, that's not the right attitude. And of course, having this own, I'm always telling people the most important thing that you have to have for a company or for a job is curiosity. Curiosity for people, curiosity for a topic, to really to find the fire in people that what is the topic where they are burning for? So what is really their motivation? What is driving them? Always trying to find out what is driving them crazy. And then trying to find a solution for that. And that is, and as I told you, with my background, growing up in a family who has their own business, my parents never asked themselves, is 9 to 5 the right working time? So when there was on Saturday, on Sunday, somehow a responsibility and something to do, of course they have done this. And work, life was always somehow together. Of course, you have to find a way with this work-life balance. And always, of course, that is an important thing. But when you love what you do, time is not important. Because then it's all somehow connected. And that's then always then the right understanding. But finding the right people, looking for a mentor, for different mentors, looking for a mentor who's completely different than your boss, because in somehow maybe your boss, you have it already as a kind of a mentor. But if you really want to have different views, different experience, always try to find people who are completely different than yourself, but finding this emotional link to these people, that is so, so, so important. And then talking to people as much as possible.
So many great points there, Erik, and I'm sure Mike is going to follow up with a couple of things here as well. But I just wanted to say you've thrown a nice little compliment, maybe a little bit of affirmation and reassurance there around the not strictly sticking to the 9 to 5, as both Micah and I, particularly Micah, has woken up extra early to work on our passion project, being the podcast here. But also for you, acknowledging that it's late in the evening as well on Sunday evening for you. So thank you for sharing some really good insights there around, what makes up your sort of like leadership approach. Really insightful. So thank you.
I think fabulously said. And I think, you didn't just let us in on some of your own struggles, but you already wrapped them up as, some of the key lessons that it sounds like to me you would give to a younger Erik or anyone else starting on this journey. The importance of vulnerability, being authentic and honest about your own shortcomings and where you have questions. I think there's so much pressure to perform and always look good these days, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe just one word to this authentic.
Yeah,
and I think
please.
that is also something I've met so many people who are, let's say, try to be different people business-wise and private-wise. And I always think, no, I have only one head, one life, one behavior and one human being. So therefore, don't try to play as an actor. If you're a person, if you're a funny person, then also try to bring some jokes and some humor also into working environment. And that's so important. And I also had a former boss who told me always, Erik, you're doing too many jokes. He said, no, but that's me. And if you don't like it, then I don't care. So this kind of self-confidence that it's absolutely good how I am. And if I like to make some jokes, of course, you have to have some knowledge behind, because if you're only doing jokes, then you're the clown. That is not the right attitude in the right way. But don't try to be someone else that you are not. So therefore, this authenticity is so, so, so important. And I really love people who are really authentic, because then if you like it or don't like it, but you know how to deal with these people and how they have to deal with you as well.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I think it's so important we bring our whole selves to work. And if we feel like we can't do that, it kills our soul eventually. There are so many people out there, Erik, who would now argue being authentic like that basically means you just say what you think. And if you think someone's an arsehole, you'll tell them they're an arsehole. So being authentic means you don't have a filter. What would you say to those people?
I think I've never told a person he's an ass or he or she is an asshole, but of course you have to find the right wording. And maybe also the right breaks, the right, let's say, emergency breaks, and when there is a stop in the conversation. And that's something what we also sometimes not good at all. So when we see there is no outcome out of this meeting, out of this conversation, out of this discussion, try to find a clear stop. Said, okay, I'm recognizing that we are going here in circles. There is no right value. Maybe we have to think about that. Maybe coming back in 1 or 2 days and then talking with a different understanding on this again. But of course, when there is some people are difficult. Let's say it in this way. And of course, you will not fall in love with all the people around the world. And it's also fantastic that we are not falling in love, because that would also be somehow difficult. But finding a way to argument and to articulate what are your thoughts, and if you don't have, let's say, the right words, then go for questions. And I always tell the people, go for as many questions as possible to really to find out what is driving them. Why are they like they are? And that is, I'm always have the feeling people are not mean by nature. Absolutely not. No one is mean by nature. They have maybe different understanding. They have a different background. They have a different history, a different whatever is driving them. But try to find out why they are acting like they're acting. If they are still then mean to you, then maybe it is their personality, but it's a very little and small number who are then really difficult on this. But go for question and really trying to find out what is driving them. And if that person is an asshole, then on a certain point, you also have to tell this person, maybe we have to find different conversation partners here. And I think it's, of course, if it's your boss, then you have a challenge, but life is too short to work for a bad boss. So that's a free world and the free possibilities. You don't have to, and even life is too short to go for bad conversations and for bad relationships and bad business relationships. Life is too short. If there is something what is driving you crazy, you can't sleep any longer with these circumstances, change it. Love it, leave it, or change it. These are always the three options.
Love that. So much empowerment in that.
Yeah, and I sort of want to circle back to something that you mentioned earlier, Erik, that links very closely to what you're talking about here. And I guess as we sort of get close to closing on our conversation, I do want to really touch on this because it's one of the first things that you mentioned, and it links so closely to Micah's question here. But you said earlier in our conversation, EQ more important than IQ. Now, when we think about how we respond and, you know, that natural curiosity that we have around the people that we work with, I feel as though there's a nice link here. But do you just want to explain to us, you know, what this notion of EQ being greater than IQ means to you and how you implement it in your work?
Yeah, for me, it's always this kind of emotional intelligence, dealing with people, really love to deal with people. And it's always when I'm setting up new team structures, I always try to make it as diverse as possible. So I'm always telling people I never hire a person that I have already in the team because this person is already there. If we want to develop something new, something great, something fantastic that wasn't there before, we need also new ideas with new thoughts, with new backgrounds. And therefore, it's always, let's say, from the time frame in the beginning, it's always a little bit longer because you have to find a way how we are communicating, how we are discussing, how we are dealing with all these different behaviors. But when you find a way as a kind of a team player, I'm a team player of this team or a part of this team, then the outcome will be amazing, cool, and even better than, of course, it would make my life way more easier when I'm hiring all people who are same-minded like myself, so all Eriks. And of course, then we're coming quite fast to a decision and clear conclusion, but is this the best one? Is it something new? No, because it's all with the same mindset and the same thinking. And this kind of emotional intelligence is for me also emotional leadership, going for people, going for one-on-ones with your teammates, trying to find out what was their highlight of the last months, their low light. I'm always writing my colleagues every Christmas, and we had now Christmas time. I'm always writing a huge letter to all of my employers, and I had sometimes 45 people, and it is then quite some time that you have to invest. So really then 1-2 pages of thoughts, of wishes, of recommendations, of feedback. If they got a child, and I'm writing this down again. Best wishes to your child. If they got a promotion, if there was something privately happening in their life, I'm always bringing this into these Christmas letters. I have now people who are working already more than 10 years in my department, so they have now 10 Christmas letters already from myself, from me. And that's always fantastic. And the funniest part is, of course, people are going then to other departments in the years, but all the people who worked for me over the last 25 years, still wishing me Christmas, the best wishes for Christmas and for a happy new year. And they're always telling me, if they are now in the team leader role, said, Erik, I took this over, I'm also writing Christmas letters to my team now. And that's such a small thing, an easy one, just to be in the memories of your team. So that's a small one. And something what I really love, and Micah also mentioned that I'm a big fan of mentoring, being a mentor, being a mentee. Because even in the good mentor-mentee relationship, you always learn from both sides. And that is something what I really love to giving, let's say, opening doors for people, giving feedback, honest feedback, trusted feedback, and of course, safe feedback. That is something what I'm doing for my people, for my teams, for friends, for family, and even people who are contacting me on LinkedIn, that I want to have somehow feedback. I really love to give feedback, and that's such an easy one, and I'm really curious about new people, and I think that is something what we all should do. And I think with all the social media, it's so easy to be connected to new people, to foreigners. Just click on them, chat with them, asking them for a virtual coffee for 15 minutes, and then you have new experience, you have new thoughts, you have a new person somewhere in Sydney, in somewhere, and that's fantastic. It was never easier to be connected to new people and new thoughts.
Yeah, and this is so perfect. You're bringing this up, and I can wholeheartedly say that you've been an amazing mentor, and you're always there to support and cheer on, and also very generous in terms of sharing your network and your knowledge and experience and so forth. So that's absolutely fantastic. And here's a little fun fact. I think I was your 30,000th contact on LinkedIn, and you can't actually have any more connections than that. On LinkedIn, you can have more people following you, but you can't have any more connections. So that was really cool. And I'm bringing this up because obviously everybody who's been listening to you now will want to connect with you. Where can people find you? And also feel free to share about your own podcast, which I know you have. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Of course, LinkedIn is always then the best channel. If you're completely right, accepting new contacts there is a little bit tricky. But I found, let's say, a small workaround, and maybe a little bit too interesting for LinkedIn. But if you're sending me a message or a connection request, I'm just answering you on this, and I'm answering all of them. So personally, even if I have now 35,000 whatever contacts and followers on LinkedIn already, I'm really answering privately to all of them if there is a message. And if I'm answering you with this message, then we have an open message, and then we can chat, and then we can have a conversation and being connected there. So that's LinkedIn is the easiest one. You mentioned our podcast. Sorry to say, that's only in German right now. We are working on an English edition as well, but it's Felgendreher and Friends, discussions for supply chain fans. So every 2 weeks we are bringing out a new podcast under the umbrella of logistic and supply chain. So everything what's going on in our industry, then we bring this up with 5 people. That's quite a challenge. We have 5 men with 5 different voices. That's then always a little bit tricky. Who's now talking? But it's really a good one. And so therefore, LinkedIn is the easiest one. Of course, I also have a small own homepage with erik-wirsing.de, or just go to my LinkedIn profile, and it's also linked into my small homepage. But just click on me, chat with me if you want to have a recommendation, whatever. And maybe coming back to this mentoring thing, if you're expecting mentoring as there must be always, if I'm bringing something in, I want to have something out, that's not the right attitude. So you really have to bring things in. And maybe 5, 4, 6 years later, this person will come back. Erik, do you remember 5 years ago, there was this conversation, you helped me in this time. Now I'm having a question back, and maybe this person is now sitting on your customer side. And that's then so cool. I really love this kind of connections, and it's never needed that there is something coming back directly, or maybe even never, and that's even fine. The outcome for me is I get to know a fantastic, interesting new person. I get to know a new person. I got new thoughts, new ideas, new impact topics for myself, and that's enough motivation to be connected to people.
Lovely. Thank you, Erik. And thank you for being so generous too. You know, it's very clear that you're such a warm, caring person, and you I feel as though very authentically presented yourself here, which, you know, was also one of our topics of conversation. And I'm sure people would love to reach out to you and learn a little bit more from your wisdom. I think there's some beautiful take-homes here for Michael and I to unpack in the second half of our show. But on behalf of both of us, I want to say a massive thank you for coming in and sharing your wisdom. Obviously, being in a position like yours, you're an incredibly busy person, and you're joining us on a Sunday evening very much in your own personal time. So we really do appreciate you coming in, joining and sharing your wisdom with us, but also all of our listeners.
That was a great pleasure for me as well, and great, and many thanks for the invite here. And absolutely, it's Sunday evening, but nevertheless, I like to do such things, and therefore, again, big thank you to both of you.
Oh, thank you, Erik.
Lovely, thank you. Alrighty, Micah, that's a wrap on another great episode. A bit of a different one today, obviously. You know, we're not necessarily talking to someone that's owns a business, but my gosh, has had a huge impact on a business for sure.
I know, absolutely. How amazing was it to listen to Erik and all of his experience? I mean, what an incredible career.
Absolutely, and you know, it seems as though the position in which Erik's got, you know, you've got to continue to be very adaptable and very on top of your game and very much at the forefront of what's happening around the world as far as technology goes. I mean, you don't get to be in charge of, you know, leading innovation in a company if you're not doing all of those things. But it's not just, I don't think it's just his ability to think like that and think in that space. It's a lot of what he brings to the table on the front of leadership as well, which has probably helped support him and move him through the ranks, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just going to say, obviously, his passion and commitment as well, that you can definitely tell has been there all of those years. It's incredible how much he commits to his career and to those jobs. He gives so much. And I don't think anyone would be able to do that if they're not really just as passionate as Erik is about innovation in this case and logistics. But yes, 100% agree with you. His emphasis on leadership and soft skills in the workplace. And, as we said in the beginning, he's also my business mentor. His soft skills are just so amazing. And I love that he touched on many different points there with regard to leadership skills.
Yeah, some incredible points that he mentioned here, and I think we're going to really dive into some of these in this conversation. But I agree, some of those soft skills were very, very evident. But he's just a beautiful, people person too. He's given up his time late in the evening to join us for a call early in our morning. It was just, he was so thankful for the opportunity, which was beautiful. But let's dive into something. I think the big thing, and it caught both of our attention as Erik mentioned it, when he was talking about the importance of EQ. This was something that was a big standout thing. I saw your reaction when he was talking about it. For me, I caught myself and I was like, this is a very, very good point here. I think an often overlooked skill, don't you think?
Yes, I think so. I think EQ, obviously, probably since Daniel Goleman's big book, has become more prominent in, I don't know, in the popular literature, I guess, around the world. But how much it's just practiced just yet, I think that there's still a big question mark against that. And I just wanted to say he really lives what he preaches there as well. As I said, he's my business mentor. He goes out of his way to support, whatever comes up in a conversation. He will, either he will, provide feedback, which, he spoke about the importance of providing feedback. And by the way, he will never give feedback if it's not warranted or if it's not invited either. But also he will share his network. He will always try to think of ways to help and be supportive, which is obviously the most fundamental sort of aspect in leadership, I guess. But yeah, let's talk about the EQ part, or the emotional intelligence part in leadership, and maybe start by just briefly defining it as, I don't know, it's defined in different ways in the literature, but I kind of like Daniel Goleman's 4 pillars, which is the self-awareness and self-regulation, and then relationship awareness and relationship management. So, one focusing on the self and the other focusing on the relationships, and the ability to recognize what is going on within the relationships between people or within myself emotionally, and also the ability to regulate that then. There's so much research out there on the impacts of EQ on leadership and impacts on teams and so forth.
Absolutely. And if we can maybe even break it down even more simply than that, I actually ran a workshop with a group of students not too long ago, quite young students, and I was explaining emotional intelligence to them, and I had this lovely girl, and she would have been maybe 10 years of age, and I was explaining it, and she's like, so it's kind of like a superpower where you're aware of what's happening in your own mind, but also have some awareness around what is happening in everyone else's mind. I was like, that's not bad for a 10-year-old. I'll take that. That's pretty good. But like you said, there's some really clear evidence out there to suggest that this is something that we should be really aware of as leaders and business owners and people working just in general with other people, right?
Yeah. And I love your example or your little story there. I just want to say the awareness part is just half of what's required. Obviously the regulation part. Yes. And I guess that's what a lot of people struggle with. I think a lot of people also struggle with the awareness part, to be honest. But the ability to then regulate, whether that is within yourself, calming yourself down, even, understanding really what exactly is going on, using emotions wheels, those kinds of things. But also within relationships, very tricky, very, very tricky. And as you know, coaching in workplaces, I feel like 95% of my job as a coach for staff is to help them understand their relationships with other people in the workplace and regulate those relationships.
Yeah, I agree. I always use the example here that, often when I was working in schools, I would have a teacher that's come off of yard duty or something like that, and somebody's thrown a brick or something like that, or there's been a fight, and for them, they're coming in, this is a 10 out of 10 issue for them. But for me, maybe I've been dealing with, something far more serious during the day. Maybe there's been something where the police have been involved, or maybe there's I'm helping a family going through a really tough time. So for me, their incident is a 2 out of 10, but I need to understand that it's a 10 out of 10 for them. And sort of meet them. There's that beautiful quote, it's when the calm meets the storm, co-regulation can occur. It's beautiful when you think about it, that our response will actually influence what's going to happen in that person's mind and shape how they respond as well. So regulation of ourselves to help support regulation of others, it's a beautiful thing when you think about it.
Yeah, I love that. Beautiful quote too.
Yeah, I wish I knew who I could attribute it to, but I always think of it on the spot, and
Same
I'm like,
problem,
gosh.
I know.
I'm shocking at that. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. Was there anything more that you want to touch base on EQ there? Obviously, it's an important thing for us to discuss.
Yeah, I guess what I always find slightly amusing is that anyone will tell you that they're emotionally intelligent. Especially, I think the least emotionally intelligent leaders will say they're emotionally intelligent, and obviously there's different ways of measuring that. Again, I guess, since the term has become so popular since Daniel Goleman's book, which obviously he wasn't the guy who coined the term, but he made it popular.
Yes.
But which is also helpful in its own way.
Yeah.
Researchers have developed several different tools to measure emotional intelligence, and obviously there's ways to, just give self-statements or self-reported measures of emotional intelligence. But obviously, more objective tests are way better predictors of actually emotional intelligence and also of beneficial impacts of leadership. So, for example, there's a test called the Mayer-Salovey-Caruso Emotional Intelligence Test, or MSCEAT. So, that gives you some problem-solving activities and stuff like that. So, for example, maybe you're presented with a couple of different faces and you are tasked to identify the emotions of those people shown in those pictures and stuff like that, So it's a bit more of an objective test. And I just wanted to share maybe that there is actually really strong research to show that emotional intelligence is very strongly linked to job performance. So there is, for example, a study by Joseph and colleagues from 2015. It's called, let me just quickly look it up if I've got it here somewhere. I don't know if I can find the reference now. Why does self-reported emotional intelligence predict job performance? A meta-analytic investigation of mixed EI, emotional intelligence. That is very, very interesting. It included 116 studies. And again, meta-analysis not only summarizing outcomes of a bunch of similar studies, investigating a similar sort of outcome, but also making quantitative statements about them. And it showed very strongly that EQ, or emotional intelligence, is a stronger predictor of job performance than cognitive intelligence, or IQ alone, and that it just plays a very critical role in staff being more engaged, motivated, and sort of cultivating high-performing teams. So there's some really, really nice research around emotional intelligence and leadership and beneficial performance outcomes in teams.
Pretty incredible when you think about it. And it's not that it's you hear it like that and it doesn't sound like it should be groundbreaking, but it's kind of it is a bit of a shift, from what people have previously held, maybe some previous held assumptions around that. So it's great to see this research sort of coming out and helping encourage and move our thoughts along. Like you mentioned earlier, I think we're a ways away from emotional intelligence being fully a part of the leadership toolbox. But it's great that we've got some more awareness about it, and we can only hope that in the future we'll continue to see more of that integrated in to our toolboxes, and hopefully more people that when they say, I have quite a great emotional intelligence, they actually do. Not just say that they do. I'm sure I've been guilty of that at different times. I have no doubt in my mind. Because I'm always getting better at it. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I'm sure I've claimed I've got a pretty good level of emotional intelligence, and I look back now, I definitely didn't when I said it. So I'm going to keep chipping away at that.
The same.
Yeah. I wonder if it's worthwhile us just very quickly touching base on the other point around teams. Like Erik was very big on talking about teams, the importance of building good teams, and I really love this because for many of our listeners, they might be moving to a space in their business where they're looking at embracing and bringing in more people into the fold. Was that something that sort of caught your attention as well?
He spoke a lot about inclusion and diversity in teams, right? Being so important for innovation and creativity and stuff like that. Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I was thinking. I really love that, and it reminded me recently of an episode I listened to from Adam Grant where he was talking about the wrong way to think about culture fit. And I really love this because he was talking a lot about the fact that, often we think about bringing people in that fit our mold, that they're going to be the right culture fit for us. And he was sort of challenging that notion to sort of say that if we only have people come in that fit our mold, how are we going to grow and expand? And it's really, it's quite lovely when you think about it. And there's this term called optimal distinctiveness, and it's balancing belonging and uniqueness as well. So you have, complete distinctness where people are fully different and there's no integration into a group. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have people that sit in, complete conformity, where they only fit in and there's no individuality. And for us, it's, we want to try and find that mix. It's that optimal point between individuality and group members sort of coexisting together. And I really love this because this challenged a lot of my thinking. We could go into big conversations here around meritocracy and, the best person for the job and things like that. But this really had me think about, what does our culture add when we're looking to bring someone new into the team? How do we expand on and how do we become a better team by bringing in new people? And I think, every person wants that, right? Mm-hmm. It's great to have a team of high performers, but if everybody's all the same, how do we think differently? And, for Erik, to Erik's point in the work that he works in, we don't want things to be all the same.
No, quite the opposite.
Yeah, anyway, that was just a bit of it just light bulb went off. I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a good point.
Yeah, I love that you brought in that podcast episode. And I guess this is the point in our conversation where I wish we had another half hour to dig deep into what does that look like in practice. So how do you recruit then, finding the right balance between matching what we already have and being completely different and therefore adding, to the mix.
Absolutely, yeah. That could definitely be an episode in itself.
Yeah.
Beautiful conversation once again, post-show, Micah. Some really great insights. And how lovely was it to have somebody that brought a bit of a different perspective, having sort of worked their way up the corporate ladder into a really senior position, into a global company. So, again, some beautiful insights shared in the episode and then continued on in our post-show recording. So thank you once again for everything that you've brought to this space.
Thank you.
Not a trouble. For our listeners, we're a bit over halfway through the season now, and I can tell you, we've definitely got some great episodes to wrap up the season or see out the season. So stay tuned. Bit of diversity in what we've got coming up. So stick with us and see out what do we got. Another 4 episodes to come after this one. So
yeah, I know. More. And for anyone who's listened to our episode with John Beale, Dr. John Beale, you will, and if you loved that one, you will absolutely love our next episode because we're interviewing a person who has developed a flow state business. That's all I'm going to say. She's incredible. You'll love it.
Well played. Good lead in there. Thanks, Micah.
Thank you.
Not a trouble at all. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. For our listeners that joined us today, thanks again for tuning in. We'd love your feedback and support to continue the show being as great as what it is. But for now, take care and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to today's show. We hope our conversation helped normalize the struggles so many of us face on the path to success. While on the outside things often look like sunshine and rainbows, this is rarely the experience for anyone behind the facade.
But instead of letting that demotivate you, we hope it does the exact opposite. to let it fuel you to keep pursuing your purpose and realise your potential, just without the added burden of feeling inadequate, and a little more patience, some tips, and self-compassion instead. For further info, head to our website, flourishingunfiltered.com, and get in touch with us via our socials, @flourishingunfiltered.
Now, if you or someone you know is struggling with feelings of loneliness, low mental health, or suicidal thoughts, please know that there are people who care and treatments that can help. We've compiled some helplines for you in the show notes.
It's a wrap for Flourishing Unfiltered today. Please give us a follow and leave us a comment and a review. We hope you tune in next time.